Hey YouTube land, Andrews here, doing an action figure review. Now, sorry if I haven't put any videos up for a while. Unfortunately, I was down with COVID, so this is the first day I kind of tested negative for, so I'm trying to get into doing a few more reviews. I didn't really want to do any reviews while I was still positive, because you don't want to be touching things and then having to come back and wipe them down and stuff and touching them again, and the usual rigmarole. But this one I've been excited for. Now, this is a preview set. Basically it's a San Diego Comic-Con of the one that's just been this year, which is 2022. This is a preview set, hence the kind of strange colors of the upcoming Judge Dredd line from Hiya Toys. Now, if you're not familiar with Judge Dredd is a character from 2000 AD comics. It's a long-standing running comic series in the UK and mostly across Europe. And they do kind of science fiction stories, and one of their main characters is Judge Joseph Dredd. If you're familiar with Sylvester Stallone's film, it's the character that was based on, or if you're familiar with the Carl Urban film of just Dredd, that's the same character, just done in a different light. So it's set in a kind of dystopian future where basically outside of the walls of megacity, the whole world's gone to crap, or outside the walls of all the different megacities, the whole world's gone to crap, and basically there's billions of people living in just giant cities, and it's full of crime and corruption, and the only form of law enforcement are the judges. And Dredd is one of the most notable judges for not taking any crap from anyone and being pretty much hardcore. So we'll just go quickly about the box. So you got this kind of interesting, because this is a double pack. You got this bubble style box. There's a double tray in the back in this, so you have the two figures at the front and then all the accessories in the tray at the back. You have the PX San Diego 220 2022 limited edition to limited to 3000 thing here. These are for 15 plus, and you have an image of Dredd from the comics on the side here. And you have an image of Dredd on the back. I picked this up from a local store called Dublin City Comics. They got these in. These are 1/18 scale, so they're pretty cool. The Judge Dredd logo is based on the comic appearance of the logo, as opposed to like the movie ones. Hopefully, if the line does well enough, they might split off into the movie versions, or into one of the movie versions. But so far, they're basing everything on the comics. So I'll go through a rundown of his accessories quickly. So there is two figures in the set. They both come with the same base. The only difference is the base is done, the paintwork I think is done. Sorry, my mistake. I thought they were the same bases, but if I flip around, they're actually different bases. I thought the detailing on this one was actually slightly different. There's actually two different style of base, which is quite interesting. Very similar skulls and bone sculpted into kind of mud, which is supposed to represent, as far as I would be aware, they're supposed to represent the cursed earth as opposed to the streets of Megacity 1. If they were going for pure Megacity 1, they probably would reuse the kind of street stuff that came with the Robocop figures, the street plate. But these are new for the Dredd line. So Dredd himself has the most accessories, and you get this incorporeal version of Judge Death. Now, again, if you're not familiar with Dredd, Judge Death is basically his nemesis. So he's basically the Joker to the Batman, whereas if Dredd was Batman, this guy would be the Joker. He's basically a interdimensional demon, or a dimensional traveling kind of demon ghost type thing, that he killed his whole world, and basically he has his sights set on Dredd's world, and Dredd has come up against him numerous times. In fact, he's part of one of, I think it's 4 dark judges. There's Death, Judge Death, Judge Mortis, Judge Fire, and Judge Fear are the 4 dark judges, and Death is kind of like the ringleader of the whole group. So we'll get into him in a minute. He's an interesting figure. Now, I have a few gripes with the way they designed this figure, and I'm hoping it's not the same as the like the official single carded, because they are doing single carded figure releases for all the dark judges. They're doing Dredd himself in at least 3 different formats. So this grey scale, all grey, kind of black and white, supposed to be from the pages of the comic, or is the kind of the first one that's being released so far. There is a color version of this coming, and then there's another version of the colored version of this, but it comes with the Lawmaster, so you don't have to buy the 2 separately. You'll get them together. So there is technically 3 versions of Dredd on the way. You also have one of the chief judges, chief judges. You have Judge Giant, Judge Anderson, Judge Hersey, and then you have all the dark judges. I'm hoping if they do have the whole 2000 AD license, they might do stuff like the ABC Warriors, which would be absolutely awesome. They weren't part of Dredd storyline, but they do kind of turn up. There's a ABC Warbot in the Stallone film, which is one of the coolest effects that they did in that film. Anyway, that's getting off topic. So Death himself comes with 2 accessories. He comes with kind of outstretched claw hands, and they are swappable. You get an extra set of these eyepieces for the base. So the 2 bases are actually separate parts. You just click them together. So you can see Judge Dredd, Judge Death, Dark Judges, 2000 AD, under license from Rebellion, 2000 AD, and from Hiya Toys. Dredd comes with a nightstick, his trademark Lawgiver, which is the trademark weapon of a judge. The cool thing about these is in the comics, they're actually outfitted so that they have different ordnance in them. So you have incendiary rounds, high explosive rounds, different sort of shots in it. There's like, in the movie, there's one called Double Whammy, where it fires 2 rounds at the same time at 2 different targets. So you have that. There is storage for the pistol on the leg. Let me just pop that into place. So straight out of the box, it comes with 2 kind of open grasping hands that can hold the nightstick. It is a shame that he doesn't have dedicated grasp hands. Now, I think the single carded version of him might have a few additional hands. This one just has the 2 hands that come default, and then the 1 trigger finger hand for the Lawgiver. So he can hold the nightstick. It's just a very loose grip, if you can see that there. And he doesn't really have paint applications per se. He's done in kind of a grayscale. He has these extra splotches. Now, people might be thinking, oh, these are paint blemishes. They're not. They're actually intentional. They're supposed to represent like the comic book panel lining and stuff like that on the figure. He also has like similar stuff on the other side of his helmet. His head is on a ball joint. He doesn't have a removable helmet, because if you know Dredd never removes his helmet, unlike the Sylvester Stallone film we will not talk about. He does have articulation on the shoulder pads here. So this one is on a peg, it just sits on the shoulder. Now, it is supposed to be glued in place. It looks like the glue is actually worn a bit on this, but it does sit on his shoulder and does move when you rotate the arm. Unfortunately, it seems to have come a little bit loose on me. So this is one of the things I'm kind of hemming and hawing about on the actual line. You have pegs on the larger shoulder pad. Now, I think this is actually supposed to be like that, but when I have it on my figure, it just goes into kind of this clump at the side. You have the Dredd badge on his uniform. Actually, I'm just going to take off the eagle because it actually makes it a lot easier so you can see how it's attached. It should be glued here. I think the glue has just come undone from me messing around with them too much. The shoulder guards are a separate piece that were put on after before the lower arm was put in place. There's only a single jointed hinge on the elbow, not a double joint like on some of the other Hiya Toys figures. Most notably, the newer style Predators have a kind of double hinge. You have a ball socket joint for the wrist, so you can kind of move it left and right. You can hold that pistol. There's a working pistol holster. He doesn't have any storage for the nightstick, which is a little bit of a shame. He does have double jointed waist and upper torso, so you have a waist joint there, or upper waist joint there, and then a lower waist joint, which is pretty nice. His legs do the split that much. Now, he can't really do a good seated position that much. I mean, at most he can do that. It's not even a full 90-degree bend with the knee. He does have double jointed knees. Double jointed knees. He does have a bit of a thigh swivel. So you do have that. His other arm, these arms tend to get a little bit restricted with the shoulder pad because of his uniform design. So you can move his arm forward, but it'll start popping bits off. In fact, if I take his other arm off, like if he didn't have the shoulder pads, you can move the arms right the way around. When you have the shoulder pads in place, this will start getting restricted. Not so much with the Eagle side one. It doesn't tend to get in the way too much, but the big shoulder pad here will get in the way. It needs to be kind of popped out of place, but you can get it out to the side a good bit, but forward, back, not so much. Overall, he's a really cool figure. I do recommend picking him up. It is just a shame that his little eagle has decided to come loose for when I was doing my review. But all in all, he's not too bad. His gun is a little bit on the gummy side, so just be wary of that when you're putting it into the holster. It can get a little, the barrel can be a little offset. Again, just like with his upper arms, the knee pads I think are slightly separate piece as well, but they're glued in place. And he also has a rocker ankle kind of thing going on with his foot. The other thing is he only has one peg hole on the bottom of his feet. He does have his sculpted boots, which are pretty cool. So he's not too bad looking, and the head sculpt is dead on for Dredd, which is pretty sweet. I can't wait to see get my hands on the coloured versions of these, because they actually look really, really cool. I'm assuming the judges, now Judge Giant won't use the same waist as this guy, and the female judges will probably use the same sculpt as each other, but Dredd himself is unique enough that he won't share any parts. But moving on to Judge Death, as Dredd falls over. Judge Death, as far as I can tell, does share parts with some of the other Dark Judges. Notably, Judge Mortis and Judge Death seem to share a lot of parts. I'm not sure if Judge Fire does. He's in translucent orange, so it is possible he used the same body mold, just in translucent orange as opposed to the black. That's going to annoy me now. I'm going to have to get a little dab of super glue just to glue that back into place. But just be wary of that. If you're moving the arm quite a bit, you may loosen up the glue on the shoulder, on the Eagle shoulder pad. So just something to be wary of. Come on. You standing in the background there. And I move on to Judge Death. There we go. So you put the old nightstick. Actually, what's funny as well is even the nightstick has like comic styling artwork kind of design on it as well. So moving on to Judge Death. Again, as I said, Judge Death is basically the nemesis of Dredd. The one thing I'm not a big fan of is the shoulder pad. The way they've done this is similar to how Dredd's one is. It's actually plugged into the chest here. So it does restrict his arm movement a hell of a lot because of the design. Now, on the prototype images that they show online, it shows that this is actually glued onto the shoulder as opposed to onto the chest piece here, similar how Dredd's Eagle is. I'm hoping they kind of do that for the main release of this guy, because as he is very restricted on how his arms can move. I mean, because of the way his arms are, you can just get his arms out to the side. You can move his arm forward a small bit and back. Even on the bone shoulder pad, it is restricted, but you can get his arm to move out a little bit further forward than with the bat one. You almost need to move the bat a good bit to get it out of the way, to get it actually to position, which is a shame. But he does look really, really cool. He does have his trademark death helmet with the grid style visor, and the kind of smiling gritted teeth kind of thing. You can see his belt buckle is actually a separate piece, so it does move around. The way he's done is upper torso is all kind of solid plastic, where this bottom one is a smoky translucent plastic, and it is actually a bendy wire. So when I first got this, I saw like the hole here, and I thought that was for plugging onto the base, but it's not. It's just for the air holes for the bendy wire. So everything down as far as this dark smoky area is actually bendy wire. So if you wanted to, you can bend it all the way out and have a very long Judge Death. But the intention for it is actually supposed to be, you're supposed to kind of curl it up into kind of a snake position. In fact, put it the right way around. You see, Judge Death doesn't have a physical form in the sense of Dredd. He does take over host bodies and he turns them into his image, but for the most part he's basically a ghost or a spirit or a demon or whatever way you want to call him. So when his physical body is destroyed, he becomes this kind of ghostly apparition sort of version of himself, which retains his kind of decayed look. You have the death badge on his thing. His head is kind of if this was a colored version, his head and arms or hands would be this kind of a sickly pale green, kind of decaying flesh green kind of type thing, whereas this is just a grayscale version of basically what he should look like. His shoulder pads are his elbow pads are pretty cool as well. They look like kind of claws, and he has that bone shape style shoulder pad and the kind of demon bat thing for his offset one. But overall, he's not too bad. You can get him to kind of stand, depending on how you have him positioned, how you have that tailpiece positioned. He does stand quite tall. If I just bring in a tape measure, he actually stands near 5 inches, and he's even longer with the tail outstretched. And Dredd himself, I can get it without knocking over. Dredd stands of just around the 4-inch mark. So, because I don't have one yet, and his bike isn't due out, the bike set, Lawmaster set, is due out next year. I have this old Mattel Batman bike. So just to show you what I mean by him not really in a seated position, just see if I can get him to hold the handles. And unfortunately, as I said, I'm going to have to glue that shoulder pad back onto place. But for now, I'll just have to sit there. So if you have stuff like that, he'll have to sit kind of very bow-legged on vehicles. His hips don't get into like a seated position. Like, for example, if I bring in the Crimson Truin here, you can see you can get into a far more seated position where you can't really with Dredd, which is a shame. Hopefully that mightn't be the case on the bike version. Hopefully they might have corrected that by the time the bike version comes along. So for a size comparison, I'm going to pop this thing out of the way, and we'll just bring in a few size comparisons. I'm just going to leave his shoulder pad off until I can glue it back into place. It is a shame, there is like a small bit of glue on it, so it's just a case of it coming loose over me manipulating it a lot and trying different stuff with it. So for another Lawman, and technically one that is based on Dredd, because if you ever look at the history of RoboCop, he was originally designed to look like a Judge Dredd, and then I think the original idea was it was going to be a Dredd movie, and then they changed everything. But here is good old Robo, or Murphy, next to Dredd. There is one of the Predators next to Dredd from Hiya Toys. We'll try and stick with Hiya toy stuff for the moment. I'll try and get Judge Death in here behind everyone. And I know I have one here somewhere. Where did I put it? It was here earlier. I had a Hiya Toys alien figure. We'll get one of the aliens. You can just get it to stand. This is the AVP warrior. So you got Dredd next to the AVP warrior. There is that 25th anniversary G.I. Joe Tomax. This is one of the Eagle Force Returns figures. We got one of the Spin Master DC comic figures, which is Superman. And just for Piggy, we have Wheatley from the Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom line. So overall, you can see the scale of Dredd next to kind of other 3 3/4 inch counterparts. Not a bad figure. It is a really good set. If you're not particularly pushed on the black and white look to this, I do recommend waiting for the colored versions. The colored versions I think are supposed to start shipping sometime in November. They could be shipping sooner. Well, at the time of this recording, they should be kind of starting to appear around the October, November kind of time period. So hopefully we'll start seeing this line dropping around then. And then, as I said, the bike version, the Lawmaster with Dredd, is not due out till 2023. So, excuse me. It should, hopefully, with everything going forward, they'll keep the license and be able to do other stuff from the 2000 AD line, or if it does well enough, we'll see more expanded characters and creatures and stuff from the Judge Dredd comics. So there you go, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video review for this video. I know I went on a good bit about it. I wanted to kind of showcase as much as I could, and I hope you enjoyed this video. And as always, please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. Cheers, guys.